Good day, good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. Hello, one and all. This is your host, MCM, and you're listening to You're Probably Right podcast. Welcome. Remember, or shall I say, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a professor of anything except for a professing Christian, a believer in Christ, Jesus, a believer in the Bible. The whole Bible, 66 books of the Bible, minus the book of Enoch and Maccabees and you know what I mean. Anyway, the normal 66 books of the Bible. You could honestly find it in a version like an ESV or a New King James version or an Old King James version if you can understand the English. Anyhow, this is not a Christian podcast, but I will say it is a podcast by a Christian. So my beliefs stem from the Word of God, which is what I was talking about just now, the Bible. Okay, so today, I think you should like this episode. Well, somebody should like this episode. If this episode is not for you, chances are it's for someone you know. Okay, so the podcast title today is Preparing for the Future, the Vital Role of Life Insurance. Now, you might say, hey, I already have life insurance, or hey, I'm too young for life insurance. Well, or I have insurance, but nobody else I know has insurance, or vice versa. You might want to stick around. This might be something you want to listen today, or maybe you want to push it back and listen to one of my other episodes. But I'm going to go through a personal little journey here, supposedly telling you about insurance and why it is important to look to the future. Although us as Christians have a blessed hope, a blessed assurance that Jesus is ours. And we're looking for a different future when this life ends, which would cause many people who are believers not to necessarily plan for the future of their loved ones. Not a good idea. As a matter of fact, I need to look for a scripture before I even start any of this. So, you know what's good about today, this episode? We're actually listening to the same music today. Spotify changed their policy as far as being able to record music. So I'll let you in on a little secret if you're not a podcaster. Generally, what I would do is I would make my whole podcast on the program that I use, which is Adobe. I have no problem telling you that. And I would get my voice right. I would, set all the settings that I need to set because I do this by myself. And then I would get everything together and I would transfer it over to Spotify for podcasters, which used to be Anchor, and now they use Riverside, which I'm not going to use Riverside, my own personal reasons. Anyway, you could do all the little finishing touches on Spotify. So therefore, when I was actually recording, because I do like to listen to music while I record, I don't know if it's white noise I need or whatever it is, but I just get into the right space. So I will tell you that this is actually the very first podcast where you and I are both listening to the same music. Now, of course, I'm listening to it probably a lot louder than you are, just because I don't want it to detract from, what I'm saying. I actually want you to be able to hear me. And I don't know if, I think my microphone and everything's pretty good, but still, it can be distracting. I know some people would prefer that I don't even put any music behind my voice at all. But I don't know. To me, it just sounds dry. And it's probably because I'm just listening to myself. You know what I mean? So anyhow, let me just find something. I was supposed to be typing and talking to you at the same time. So yes, this is the very first podcast where me and you are listening to the same music, which is kind of cool. Makes it even more intimate, I suppose. Let's see. That does not. Let's see. Does not. Oh. I wanted to find something. I wanted to find a scripture that I wanted you to read. I wanted to read for you, but yeah, I want you to read the whole thing, but this isn't what I was looking for. Anyway, Proverbs 13:22 says, and Proverbs chapter 13 in Proverbs says, and it's chapter 13 verse 22, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. That is actually pretty good. I want to copy and paste. That may not even happen. That's not the one that I wanted you to read. But did you notice that it said good person leaves an inheritance for his children's children? Really, it's a good man. I don't know why they switch part of it masculine and then they the beginning is just a person and they say his. But it really most versions say a good man leaves an inheritance. But that's not what I wanted to read. But it said children's children. That lets you know that you're not leaving a couple bucks, because it would have to be able to do for your children and your children's children. That's a lot. I mean, I guess living at your level, whatever it is. But let's see. He who does not leave an inheritance. Let's see if I get, okay, how about this one? Okay, this is 1 Timothy 5 verse 8. It says, anyone who does not provide for their relatives and especially for their own household has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So obviously you can tell that this message was actually written to believers. I'm going to read it again. English Standard Version. It says, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So this message right there is for people who call themselves Christians. Simply stated, you can find it in 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8. And yes, read the whole passage. Don't just read the little verse, but you can understand that there is instruction. So both of those verses, those passages that I read just now, both have to do with being a good steward of your money and leaving something to your children, wife, family members. It just says their family, those who depend on you. And obviously read Proverbs 13, but more importantly, Proverbs 13:22. All right. Now I'm going to get to our actual podcast for today. I'm sorry that it's choppy, but you know what? It is what it is. You're there. I'm here. I don't know if you're washing dishes. I don't know if you're driving in your car. I don't know if you've laid down for a nappy. Or maybe you're gone down for the night. Maybe you're bored out of your skull and it's raining outside or snowing outside, or it's just too hot to be anywhere besides underneath a tree somewhere or sitting the dock of the bay passing time. Okay. So, as I said before, this podcast title is Preparing for the Future, the Vital Role of Life Insurance. So now you know why I read those scriptures if you didn't know before. So I'm just going to start this off really officially, although it is 9 minutes in. Welcome to another episode of You're Probably Right, hosted by me, MCM. Today we're diving into an essential yet often overlooked topic: the importance of securing life insurance and planning for the future. Many of us, especially within Christian families, tend to focus on the present and trust in faith to guide our lives and hope that God will take everything and control everything, and we don't have to worry about the future because, we're waiting for the rapture and the rapture could come at any time now. Yeah, that is correct. But at the same time, no man knows but the Father when this will be happening. Okay? However, it's crucial to balance faith with practical planning to ensure our loved ones are taken care of when we're gone. We'll discuss the significance of obtaining life insurance independently, covering costs like headstones, get into that a little bit, funeral arrangements, and securing an inheritance for those who depend on us. From my own experience, of course, I've seen how a lack of preparation can impact families and want to share why it is vital to break this cycle. Let's explore the steps you can take to prepare for the future responsibly. Now, I'm sorry, my reading sucks, as you know, if you've listened to this podcast before. And if you haven't, well, welcome to my horribly reading. Okay, that's about all I'm going to read except for the questions. I have some personal experiences, and I'm hoping, because I'm just hitting these questions cold, that I'm going to answer everything that I can possibly answer. And again, this is one of those podcasts, not many, but this is one of those that sometimes it's good to have somebody kind of riding beside you in the podcast, making sure that we touch on everything. Although sometimes I've noticed people who do have a co-host, tend to get off topic. Although I know I'm capable of going off topic myself. But, you'll have a question and something will jump into someone's mind and they'll stir the conversation here or there. And sometimes you get off topic. Or if you don't get off topic, the episode gets way too long than you expected just because of all the different thoughts and ideas, which are good but can be bad as well. Anyhow, first question. Let's get to it. Last episode, I only got to 5 questions. So I'm not promising you that I'm going to do all the 10 questions, but it'd be very nice if I did. First question. Why do you believe that securing life insurance independently is essential? Well, I know that most of us have jobs that, most of us work in the public sector one way or the other, and usually your employer, and if they do or they don't, first of all, if they don't, I would say that your career aspirations are probably not finished if you're trying to be responsible, unless your career aspirations is to own your own company or run your own company, and you're going to look for, say you're looking to look for insurance on your own. But most companies, if you're a full-timer, will give you some sort of insurance benefit, like if you accidental death, whatever it is, not accidental death, but just regular life insurance. If you pass away and you're still an employee, they usually give you like 1 times your salary, 1.5 times your salary, or 2 times your salary, which pretty much in every case right now, unless something weird happens, will be enough to bury you, and will be enough to take care of your funeral, but definitely won't be enough to finish paying off your mortgage, let's say, especially if you're a younger person, and even if you're an older person. A lot of the people, mortgage is something that you usually pay till you die. In most cases, most people, but a few $100,000 in many cases won't pay off the rest of your mortgage. Or a couple, 70, 120,000 generally won't pay off the rest of your mortgage, especially if you're in Canada. If you're in Ontario, if you're in BC, it's not going to do it in most cases, unless you were already well off and that situation was already set up before you came around, maybe you had parents, or maybe you have a high paying job. But I'm just talking about average Joe or Jane, regular living life situation. And many of us are these days single, and many of us are single parents. So therefore, there's only one paycheck. A lot of time it's just kids depending on us, and sometimes parents. Many of us are living with our family members, sisters, parents, kids, cousins, uncles sometimes. So I'm not talking about just, I guess for this question, I'm just answering the fact that, yes, you do need to get independent life insurance. And I believe it is totally essential for both husband and wife. It's possible. And you need to make it possible. Sometimes we think that we can't afford things. It's kind of like, we can't afford a vacation. Well, maybe taking that vacation every year or twice a year will lessen your stress, will help you to rekindle parts of your intimacy that get diminished by the amount of time that you spend out of your house working with strangers all day and not putting into your relationship. Sometimes you need that part of it, but knowing that you've set a good base for some sort of wealth for your wife or for your kids, I guess for your husband, it's a peace of mind. It shows that you are a loving person and you do care what happens to yours when you pass. That's all I'm going to say about that, but yeah, I'll just leave it like that. Hopefully you're following what I'm saying. I'm going to get the rest of these questions off, so just to make sure that I follow this, get this whole thing really out. Just try not to waste too much time today. All right, there we go. Next question. What are some common misconceptions about life insurance within your community? All right. So as I was saying, I think I got into it a little bit. Sometimes Christians, as I said, I was brought up in a Pentecostal home. I'm no longer Pentecostal. I don't believe in going to Pentecostal churches anymore, and that has to do with various little parts of their not even very little parts, large parts of the focus at, say, a Pentecostal church. I'm not into people trying to pump me up to worship, or where people consider, and I'm just getting into my belief system. So because it's asking about my community, I just kind of want to give you some sort of a picture. I don't like churches that the atmosphere turns into a rock concert. I don't like churches where the minister preaches for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and at the same time are being demeaning to men or being demeaning to women. I want to go to a church that expounds on the scriptures and is not based barely on somebody just giving their opinion, like my podcast. If you want to go to this type of a church where the guy's just sitting there giving his own his opinions, then I don't call that church. I believe where you're staying close to the scriptures and teaching the word. It says faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God, not the hearing by Pastor Johnson and what he thinks about men and which men don't stay at home, or which women refuse to work, or whatever the theme of the day or the climate of society is, and how it creeps into the church, and social justice and speaking in tongues, all that stuff that goes on at a Pentecostal church. And that's why I say that I would call myself more Reformed or Baptist. And I know there's a lot of different types of Baptist, but let's just say boring Baptist. Let's just say those who just expound on the word, believe that you should be a part of a church, believe that the pastor is someone who helps guide the sheep, the family of God at that particular location, and is not seen higher than everyone else, but is doing his job that he has been called to do, and one who believes in actually reading the word and using the word to teach, to preach. I believe in faith that is given to us by God to believe in him. And I believe it's not works, as the scripture says. It's not by works, lest any man shall boast. So it's not how hard you work. It's the working of the cross. Anyhow, again, as I said before, this isn't a Christian podcast. It is a podcast by a Christian. So you can get more information like this from your local church. But the misconception about life insurance is, again, many people believe, Christians believe, that we are in the last days. Now, I do believe we are in the last days. If you don't know what that means, then yes, you need to check a Bible. You need to check into a church. Basically, just giving you the Coles notes, I guess, of it, but I'm not going through any notes. Christians believe that Jesus is coming back for believers, and he will meet us in the air. The same way his ascension happened, he's going to come down and he's going to meet us. First, it says in the Bible, first the dead in Christ shall rise. The dead in Christ shall rise first. Those who are believers who passed on before us, they will rise first. And then those who remain, us who are believers, if we're still alive, Jesus comes down and we meet him in the air. We are gone from this planet. We go. So, to get into that teaching, you need to read the Bible, or you need to have somebody explain it to you who is a Christian, and that is the focus of your conversation, because I wouldn't just add it in here and try to give you a 2-second teaching. Not to mention, I'm not a teacher of biblical. I can share the gospel, but I don't know every ins and outs to tell you properly, to do it justice. I mean, yeah. So, as I was saying, and I'm sorry if I keep veering off, but I mean, there's so much information here. I just trying to answer a simple question, but then I think of all the little pieces that people might not know. But a lot of the time, Christians, especially from West Indian background, or maybe just a Jamaican background, they're not worried about it. They just, pay my this and you can pay my that, and I have a couple dollars underneath my bed, and I left some in the bank, and my job should pay, and they're not really concerned. They're lackadaisical. It's not that they don't even care. It's just, I don't know if it's just life stress, or just always having not enough or barely enough money to handle the so-called important things that people think are important when they're alive. But for some reason, insurance, I don't know if it's selfishness, sadly, because everybody knows if you're paying life insurance, you are never seeing any of that money. That money is going out of your check or out of your account, and the only people that can possibly benefit from that money are people who you leave that money to after you are dead. And again, maybe it is selfishness to some level, or just absent-mindedness. I don't know. Lack of preparedness, or just a bad habit within your family. Bad cycle. But anyway, next question. How did your upbringing influence your initial views on future planning and life insurance? Again, I'll go back to this again, where my parents always struggled to pay everything. With 4 kids, husband and wife, in a home, just average, I would say. Not too expensive, not too cheap. But when you go through, it's funny, when people pass on in your family, you'll see records of things. You'll see a life insurance bottle over here, a life insurance bottle over here, and this and that. And at some time or another, they keep the papers for whatever reason, but they change life insurance policies. Life insurance policies lapse. Maybe you didn't pay on time, therefore they canceled it. You took off 3 years and you tried to get it back, and then you found out that, guess what? You're now too old and you cannot afford, with your living situation, maybe the mortgage that you're paying, or the car bills that you're paying, or whatever it is you're paying. You now, when you try to go back to get that same insurance that say was $150, is now $570 per month. because you are now 56 years old and you basically can't afford to get life insurance anymore. So there's various reasons why that happens. And for some reason in my upbringing, it just wasn't a thing. Um, so I won't say my parents didn't care about it. They tried to, but for some reason, priorities, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. It didn't seem to be a main priority. Now, my parents had a house, and for some reason, I think that they thought that that would somehow be able to handle business for everyone. I just don't think that it was really thought through. I don't get it, really. I could give you a bunch of answers, but I'd probably be wrong if I go off on one tangent or another. I can say that my father did try to have things set in a way where we had land in our old country. What happened? Sorry, I got sidetracked there, guys. But yeah, from our old country, which is Jamaica, which I was born in Canada. I wasn't born in Jamaica, but there was land supposedly left, and it just wasn't dealt with properly. My father got sick, and he was unable to attend to taxes and those types of things. And anybody who it comes from a West Indian country and maybe some of the other countries know that if you have not paid your taxes or kept up with your taxes properly, or if your land is left unattended, then squatters will show up, and many countries have squatter rules. And if somebody shows up and starts living on your land and pays the taxes, they essentially get your land for free as long as they're paying the taxes and you are nowhere in sight. And then, of course, there's the land that was left again from my grandmother on my father's side, that was a joint to it's a joint to other family members, and I think they just kind of engulfed it. They probably cut the weeds down, whatever it is, and slowly slid over and said, you know what, these guys are not coming back for this. It's ours. We're from the same family, but it is ours because I've been taking care of it. And I mean, I could technically go back and argue and fight for it, but who am I to do such a thing? And what would it cost? That could cost anything, trust me. So that is what it is. So what I will say is that I believe that my father made some sort of an effort to try to handle things, but again, priorities, thinking about heavenly things. Sometimes us as believers are no earthly good. We don't handle things. If we have the timing wrong, why would we try to handicap it and say that we believe that before we die, the Lord will come, and therefore we won't have a need for life insurance? And who says you don't need life insurance if you die? And let's just say, the rapture does come. The rapture does come. There's going to be 3 years of okay life, or 3.5 years of okay life down here, and then everything's going to switch. Well, your kids might still need the life insurance for that 3.5 years. I really don't know, but the bottom line is I believe that, if you read those scriptures, I believe that you do have a responsibility to leave something. It's not your business to say what's going to happen after you pass. It's not for you to say what's going to happen. Thinking about it, if everybody disappears and there's life insurance, I guess all life insurance would probably lapse because there'd be all kinds of people that are not there to pay. There's going to be no, I guess it will be a debacle. The bottom line is, why chance it? Why try to handicap it and say, you know what, I have a really good feeling? Because everybody who said that, who have passed from this point and past, were wrong. And those who are back here remaining in life do need that insurance money. So, come on. In most cases, it's not costing you more than 12% of your paycheck. So I believe that it's something that we need to just budget for. And hey, maybe you're going to have to live in a smaller house. Maybe you're going to have to drive a smaller car. Maybe you're going to have to ride the bus. You know what I mean? It's important. It's a lot more important than the other stuff that we pay for, people. Next question. And I'm sorry that this episode seems to be a little choppy. At least it really, really feels choppy. I feel like I'm all over the place. But it's trying to go through many different thoughts in my head, and trying not to let everything all at once seems to be making me leave everything all over the place. So hopefully you're able to follow, although I haven't been very good at keeping my thoughts clear and concise and interesting, but I'm doing my best. Anyhow, next question. Let's see. Steps 2. Okay. So I will answer this again. Can you share a personal experience that highlighted the importance of having life insurance? Okay. So I'm just going to get to it. And if I end up stepping over something, which I guess that was the problem in the first place, why I wasn't answering exactly how I wanted to. But, okay. So this podcast is 1 week, less than a week, from my mother's funeral. And my mother, she had very little life insurance. And, to tell you the truth, it's not really anybody's business. And I don't say this to degrade or to embarrass my family or to not honor my mother. It wasn't her fault, I guess, in some respects. And of course, that would be personal. But what's done is done. She's passed and gone. I loved her very much, and she did all that I believe she thought that she could do for me in the best way that she knew how. But being the youngest in a family of 4 kids and 2 parents in one home, a house that they paid really, they worked hard to maintain and keep. When you're the youngest, especially when there's a lot of age gaps, you tend to bury everyone. I was thinking about it, and I was responsible for pretty much addressing everyone who's passed in my family. So who has passed is my father first, then my brother, then my sister, who was only a couple years older than me, and then my mother 2 weeks ago. And I guess clothing someone, in from our religion, I guess, we put on a suit or a dress on them, generally we would like to put them in something brand new or something very good. And for both my mother and my sister, I bought them both brand new dresses. And for my brother and my father, they were actually buried in 2 different suits that I have, my suits. And I put shoes on them. They put the exact same shoes because I had 2 pairs, and they were in perfect condition. The suits were in perfect condition. Actually, my father's was really his, but then I took it because it became too big for him. But then somehow it still ended up being back on him when he was buried. But hopefully it's not too grotesque for anybody. But the bottom line is that little part, I really took pride in doing that for them and making sure they look, spiffy and clean and nice, in their coffin and everything. I picked out all 4 coffins. Actually, I think my mother might have picked my brother's. But, that's just a little thing, and it does cost money. I mean, life happens. Most people don't have 5, 6, 7, 8 $1,000 just lying around, just throw somebody in a coffin and to get their clothes and to get this and get that and pay for a whole bunch of different things when somebody's passing. And that's another thing. You very rarely be able to afford to bury someone unless you're doing cremation or putting them in the cheapest box you can find. And that's another thing. If you don't make a way for yourself to be, put into some sort of a sarcophagus like a Egyptian, you know what I mean? You're gonna have to know that anything can happen. But the thing is, when you leave this earth, you die. It's not up to you to say, put me in a pine box. I don't care what happens. Wrap me in some loincloth or whatever it is, and make sure my face is facing south. Or you have no choices. And people try to honor you. People try to do their best for your funeral, for your funeral, because it looks like how you're honoring the person. So I mean, I've made it, and that saying, I've said that saying to those around me, saying, just put me in any casket, don't worry. Or I don't need the shiny gold or the nice white gold with silver trim or whatever it is casket. Just put me in a regular box and don't cause yourself any more financial heartache and troubles. But everybody wants to honor everyone, and I don't know if that's in every family. I don't know if that's in most cultures or not. I can't really tell you. But my family, we want to go out like kings and queens for whatever reason, or at least we don't. But the individual who passes doesn't care. But for some reason, when the other people behind do care, they try to do the most extravagant thing, which in our cases hasn't been afforded. Like maybe if the cheap box was picked, then you'd actually afford a headstone. And here's the joke, or there's the rub. My 4 family members are all buried in one cemetery. I know where they're all laid to rest. No headstone. Why? Because there was no provisions made for it. In most cases, there was loans that had to be taken out because there wasn't proper insurance, or insurances that weren't going, even if it was coming, which, it's not enough. The reality is that when you die, most of the funeral things, the things that are pertain to a regular Christian funeral are costly. And the funeral homes know this. The burial sites know this, and know that you're paying for a coffin, you're paying for a chapel, you're paying for a minister, you're paying for the clothes of the deceased, you're paying to house them in the funeral home. Most likely, if you're not doing the funeral the next day or the next day after that, usually there's a fee of like anywhere from $80 to $150 a day, and a whole bunch of other costs, right? And that's why insurance, at least bare bones minimum, if you're in a job that pays for that, great. It is really important. But people do get fired. People do change jobs. Sometimes you get a job that's almost full-time but not quite, or maybe there's some stipulation as to how quick you get to pay into that life insurance. So it's not always there for you. You understand? So the reason why it's best, as the first question said, securing life insurance independently is essential, basically because life situations change. And if you can get that life insurance cheap, and the best way to get that cheap, if there is such a thing, is get it as young as you can. So in other words, if you can't get it today under the hearing of my voice, then try to get it tomorrow. Because the reality is, in a month or two, it's going to be more expensive than it is tomorrow. Do you get it? It gets more expensive as you get older, because obviously the chances of you passing becomes more and more present, more and more likely with every passing day. Okay? And for some reason in, I guess, the black community, the joke has always been that when, can I say this? I can say this. It's my podcast. The joke has been in our community. It says when a white man passes, he leaves a will. And when a black man passes, he leaves a bill. Get it? Think about it. Talk about it with your friends and family. And although my parents did leave a will, at least my parents did, neither of my siblings did, but they both passed relatively young. And brother was sudden. My sister wasn't so sudden, but then she didn't have anybody to worry about, like kids behind her, except of course there's no provisions made for her, but that's not her fault. She's a total different situation. But as I said before, if you do have a job and you're a working individual, and maybe you didn't do it before, please look into getting life insurance to take care of those who are going to be taking care of your funeral expenses or whatever, maybe just clearing up your estate if you have one or whatever it is, or make specific arrangements. Go see a lawyer, write a will, what you would like done with you, what you would like done with your estate or even your belongings, your possessions. Because, we don't really own anything. We're leaving everything. You're leaving everything besides the clothes on your back. And chances are the clothes on your back right now will not be in your casket. So even what you're wearing will go somewhere else, even if it is Salvation Army or something. Next question. I hope this is going to help someone, because I know that I could have presented this like a, what's it called? Just like a PowerPoint presentation, like some type of learning that way. And I don't want it to be that way. I'm just here talking to you, giving you my little experience, and I'm trying to show you, those who don't know, the importance and why you really do need to get life insurance. And I know that I haven't really got into my specifics from a personal standpoint really that deeply. I'm trying to hold back a little, because it really isn't anybody's business to know exactly what's happened in my own family. But I'm just telling you, as someone who has lost 4 out of a possible 5 people I could lose from my immediate family, and I happen to be the youngest of all of those people, and the youngest because I'm the youngest child of that family. It hasn't been nice at all in my situation. And to tell you the truth, if everybody had life insurance, here's the joke, or not so much of a joke. If everybody had their own life insurance, I would be sitting a lot prettier than I am right now. And, don't go for the lowest. I'm just telling you, I mean, hey, it's not to make someone rich after you pass, but hey, why not make them a little wealthy, right? There's different things that they'll be able to do with their life. Maybe you aren't able to do this and that. And, many of us are worth a lot more dead than alive. And I see nothing wrong with that, to tell you the truth. Create opportunity for your kids to prosper, your family to prosper after you go. If insurance companies are willing to flip the bill, you know what I mean? Like, why leave nothing? And if that is your idea, look into your heart and maybe check out those scriptures that I read, and really think and search within your heart. Why is it better to leave something than not to leave something? Why is it your responsibility to take care of those you will leave? And the joke is, you don't know how you're going to go. You don't know if it's going to be a sudden death, or you don't know if you'll be languishing in a hospice for 5 to 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, I have some experience with that as well. I've had the situation where a family member has passed away and I get told 5 hours later. And I've had the situation where I've been right there as they've passed away. And I've had the situation where they've been sick for 5 to 10 to 15 years. You know what I mean? I've had some interesting experiences. I'm just telling you, from someone's standpoint who've watched a person pass away for a year and a half. Heard last seen my sibling 1 week before they passed away, as well as my parents, who both died at the same age, many years apart, but were sick for an extended period of time, and the care that goes into that, from hospital beds to depends to proper food to healthcare aids or PSWs. Like, there's really a lot to consider, and that's why you can't just say I'm gonna go or I'm waiting for the rapture. If you don't know what the rapture is, people, you can check that out too. It's in the scriptures. Where am I? I'm just gonna try to finish this up. We're already at 45 minutes of me rambling. What steps have you taken to ensure your family is protected and provided for in your absence? And I will say that I have bought insurance, and I'm hoping that whatever this cycle has been in my family, that I will be able to continually pay my insurance. And I've told my kids, if you can't pay anything else, and something happens, and I the cheese slides off my cracker, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing, then I'm saying, please make sure that my life insurance is paid so that you kids will obtain life insurance for me. I have one for my job, but hey, I could get fired, maybe from doing this podcast. But I have a life insurance that I pay into by itself. So I'll just keep that simple. Move on to the next question. Let's go. How can one balance faith, practical future planning within a Christian household? I would say just exactly what I've said. Yes, we are looking for that blessed hope. We are looking to meet Jesus in the air as believers. We believe that he died and he rose again. He's at the right hand of the Father right now, making intercessions for us daily or all the time. So we know that this world is passing. We know that this world is not our home. We're just passing through. But at the same time, people have been saying for years that they believe we're in the last generation. And sure enough, we are in the church age. But we don't know if it's next week or if it's in 17 years or in 4 years or 2 years. Bottom line is we don't know. And from my experience, I'm telling you, from a whole family pretty much passing away, it is very important for your kids. Even if they say, don't worry, I got my own, and mom may have and dad may have, but, blessed is the child that has their own, but you never know. Even if you leave it for your siblings, your cousin, maybe there's somebody you're taking care of, maybe someone you don't even know you're going to be taking care of, and you never know who goes first. For instance, my sister, who was a couple years older than me, was the one who was taking care of health-wise for my older sister, who is still here, and my mother, and actually was basically the person on point for my father. And she ended up passing away after my brother and my father and my brother. And then therefore that left me, who wasn't the caregiver of my mother and my sister, but I'm still here. And you just don't know the order, in other words. What advice would you give someone hesitant about investing in life insurance? Advice that I don't really try to give advice, to tell you the truth, on this podcast, but I will in this case. I would just say, you know what? It makes life so much easier. And if you look into your own life, if you have any loved ones that have passed away, be it a sibling, or be it a parent, or be it a sibling who left kids and in your care, or where you are somewhat responsible for them, or maybe not even responsible, but you'd like to see certain things for them, but you have your own kids, or you have your own bills, or whatever the things are. Wouldn't it be nice if those who have passed left a little something so that you can handle business properly, or take care of you a little bit, So now that you've experienced it, if you have at all, think about those who are behind you and think about the scriptures that I read. What benefits have you seen from having life insurance beyond financial security or beyond financial security? It's just a peace of mind. It's something you can say and people don't have to worry. If they see you fall sick, they know, even if that's not what their mind is, oh, let me get my hands on that dough. It's just a sense of security beyond the sense of financial security. It's just knowing that that's not another added stress that's going to be. And if anything, if possible, it might even alleviate some stress that you have, because financial stress isn't only financial stress, it's life stress, And lastly, because I've just rushed these questions here and I'm finishing right here, how do you educate yourself and others about the different types of life insurance and their benefits? I would say the best way to know is to maybe get a top 10 in your area or in your country companies and call them with the questions that you have and what you think you need, and pick their brain and see what the average person, says they need, and maybe ask around to family members or friends who do have it. And maybe some know that there's, sometimes there's little tips and tricks about these insurances. And if you don't ask somebody, you won't know. So I would say get your top 10, will it down to probably 5, call all of them, see if you can get the best rate, see who has the best track record of actually paying out and not giving too much of a hassle, and, take the plunge, maybe cut your cable off. Cable costs $150 these days. Maybe get a cheaper cell phone plan. Like, there's ways that you can, you can fix your income that you might not even see it if you really look how you spend your money. So, anyhow, this has been a financial advice version of, no, it's just me talking to you on, you're probably right, it's MCM, and thank you for tuning in today. And hopefully with all of my ramblings, as I like to say, you've learned something. And if you know more about the information that I've talked about, great, pass it on, use it. Don't only give it out. You probably do know more, and you're probably right. But don't only keep that information or that knowledge, put it into action and do something about it. Okay. Anyhow, this is, you're probably right, MCM signing off. Peace out. Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 docs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.